This week's Parshas Beshelech, is a big week. We have in this week's Parsha, Kriyas Yamsuf, beginning of the month, and Shabbos, and a lot of different things that come into Parshas Beshelech. Very interesting, right after Kriyas Yamsuf, after there's a high, you've seen the Kriyas Yamsuf. And not only that, the people are gathering up the gems, what's left over from the Egyptians, the Bizur Yayam, they're taking all these riches. And then Moshe Rabbeinu has to try to get them away. Vayasa Moshe, says Rashi, Yisiyan Bal Korcham. He had to force them to go away. They didn't want to leave. Right? They didn't want to leave from Yamsuf. What's the pshat? So I think that the depth of the pshat is that they didn't want to tear themselves away from that which was familiar. Very interesting human nature. People will stick with things that are bitter and hard because it's easier to live with the familiar than to open yourself up to the unknown. Very interesting human nature. And that's what Klal Yisrael had. And they had what to fear, because they were going into a midbar with no provisions and nothing, and what's going to be? Where are we going to be? What's going to happen? So Moshe Rabbeinu had to tear them away and say, Rabbi, we got to go. What happens? They come to a place, Torah says, Vayavo Marasa. And there, the water was bitter. And they couldn't drink the water. So Hashem showed him, by Yoreo Hashem ate, Hashem showed him a wood, a tree, and he threw it into the water, and it sweetened the water. And then he gave them the Sham Samla Choko Mishpat. He gave them laws, the Sham Nisahu, and there he tested them. Rashi says, what does it mean there? He tested them. Says Rashi, that when they came there, they were being tested to see how they would react to some difficulties. And they reacted not in the best way. They complained. They muttered and they complained. But it's very strange because it struck me that the Niso should have been first. When they came, they were tested. The mitzvahs that he gave them was at the end. Somehow the pasuk is out of order. And I found some Mefarshim who actually deal with this a little bit. But I was thinking that also the Mefarshim, the Arachai Mekarash asked the question, why Vayavo Marasa? So Rashi says, and it says Marasa, it's Ki'il, it says Lim Mara. Well, why does the Torah use that expression? So it occurred to me that first of all, we have to understand. They went for 3 days and they didn't have water. Now, it cannot be that they didn't have any water. A person who was for 3 days without water would be dead, not shy of the whole place, so didn't have any water for 3 days. It must be that they had stored up some water and they went 3 days and they weren't able to refill. So it was difficult. Yes, you can't carry a lot of water. Water's heavy. Seder. So you have to ration your water. But they had some water. They come tomorrow, they think, now we're going to be able to fill everything up, and it's bitter. But perhaps the pshat is that it's human nature that when you're unhappy about something, they were forced to travel, nothing was good. When you're forced into a situation, then everything that happens is bad, right? Because you're unhappy. Vayavo Marasa doesn't mean they came to a place called Mara. They called it Mara later. They came embittered because they were forced to go traveling and they didn't want to, and they're muttering under their breath and they're unhappy. Everything's no good, right? Yiddish expression, alles is bitter. It's all no good because you're embittered. You're unhappy, and that's why it was bitter. They couldn't drink the water. What happened? Hashem says, take a piece of wood and throw it in. But it doesn't say that Hashem said to Moshe, I'm giving you instructions. Tell the people, I have instructed you to throw the wood in. There's a remez there. Tell the people, you do what you're told. And when you do what you're told, everything turns sweet. Right? Overcome the bitterness, do what you're told. Vayireu, he went ahead, he was told, he threw in the wood, everything's better. Sham samla choka mishpat. So now there are rules. Now there are rules, folks. You know what? Be involved in understanding that there are things you have to follow. And if you get involved in things you have to follow, you see that there are things to do. Shabbos, Rashi says, paraduma, things to think about, philosophical things. So true, it's a little bit difficult. You don't know that it's going to happen, but you have something to occupy yourself. Now is the test. Now that you have something to occupy yourself, now that you have a direction, and you recognize, I got to do what I'm told, and I have something to occupy myself, now let's see what you're going to do. And that's a real test for everybody in life. We have Torah, we have mitzvahs, we have things to do. Sometimes things don't go the way you want them to go. Are you going to mutter? Are you going to be bitter? Are you going to say, you know what? I got what to do. Let me follow what I got to do what's supposed to be done, and take it in a good light, in a good ruach, and take it in a good avirah, in a good in a good attitude that makes all the difference in life. That's perhaps what the Torah is teaching us. The aftermath of Kriyas Yam Suf.